Charlie's batch. Who's Charlie? Another year of Booker's Bourbon from Jim Beam is about to begin with the first batch named Charlie's Batch. Another first release of the year dedicated to an important figure in the history of Jim Beam. In a time where we all focus mostly on what's inside the bottle, the story about this particular batch of Booker's is about the box that it comes in. Let's taste it. Let's learn a little bit more about it. It's the Mash and Drum. What's up, folks? I'm Jason C for the Mash and Drum, and welcome back to the show. Like, subscribe, help grow the channel for 2023. Appreciate it, WhiskeyTube family. As you may or may not know, every Booker's batch needs a theme and a catchy name. So for the first release of 2023, the theme is centered around longtime friend of the distillery, Charlie Hutchins. Charlie Hutchins is a former Jim Beam employee who worked at the Booker No Distillery, who ended up designing and crafting the first wooden box to contain a bottle of Booker's for former master distiller Booker No. Now, since then, Charlie Hutchins has crafted each and every Booker's box that followed. That's a lot of boxes. Eventually, Charlie left the company to open a cabinet shop with his brother. However, Charlie is still crafting Booker's boxes to this day and has also crafted some custom furniture for the new Fred B. No Distillery, which is where Booker's Bourbon is now distilled. Like all batches of Booker's, it comes with this little card that actually tells the whole story of Charlie Hutchins. Also gives you all the blending details of what went into this bottle. I do wish they made this card a little bit bigger. I mean, you got this big old Booker's box. Let's put a bigger card in here, make it a little easier to read. I mean, the text is kind of tiny, I'm just saying. So like all batches of Booker's, Charlie's batch is bottled at cask strength. In this case, a hearty 126.6 proof. Like other recent batches of Booker's going into last year, this one continues the trend of an age statement of more than 7 years old. In this case, 7 years, 1 month, 8 days to be exact. MSRP for Booker's, as usual, 90 bucks. All right, let's give this one a go. Here we go. So the nose on this is fantastic. This if you guys are looking, if any of you are Booker's fans out there and you're looking for that peanut shell, peanut buttery type of flavor profile to it, at least on the nose, that's not what I'm getting. This is more of a dark brown sugar, almost like a roasted almond, not just like that peanut note, but you get like an almond and almost like a pecan, like a sweet pecan type of note to it. I mean, that nuttiness is there, the peanut shell is there slightly, but there's just, some more depth to it. You get your caramels, vanillas, which are, usual for Booker's. I mean, Booker's has never really been the most complex bourbon. It's just that, you have to try to find that specific batch from batch to batch, which one is going to be the one that gives you a little bit extra. But for this one, that caramel vanilla along with that brown sugar pecan note, it's definitely a little bit of an elevated sweetness, and that's what you really look for in different Booker's batches. A little bit of an oak char too there from the barrel. This smells great. I mean, so far so good. Let's give it a try, guys. Cheers. And there it is. Woo! The signature Booker's Kentucky Hug. Feel it right here. Going down. Yeah, it makes you all warm and fuzzy inside. So first sip of this one. This is a nice batch of Booker's so far. I mean, all that stuff I was getting on the nose, guys, the brown sugar, the deep rich, like caramelized sugars. Again, that signature caramel vanilla, it's just a little bit different for Booker's here. I'm not going to go as far to say that this is as sweet as pecan pie. I do think it still has some of that nuttiness that you get from a Booker's, but the sweetness level here is definitely elevated. Wow, so the second sip here, it's still kind of impressive. It's holding its flavor profile. It's not losing anything. The one thing it has lost, I will say, is like that super burn that it had on that first sip. But again, like I said before, your first sip, it's just gonna light up your palate. But for this one, while there is still a high proof content to it, it's drinking a lot less. If you told me this was 110 to 115, I might believe you on that one. But the flavor profiles here, vanilla, and now I'm getting a little bit of chocolate here too. So kind of like a vanilla chocolate ice cream combination. Again, that little bit of a pecan pie note to it. So far, so good. As you keep sipping this and get into it, that back end of this actually gets a little bit savory, a little bit more rye spice starts to come out. You definitely feel the black pepper here. That proof still lingers, but it mainly sits now in the back of the palate, not so much, I think, once you're warmed up, you're kind of used to it. So I'm trying to remember like what bottle of Booker's I could even compare this to. I feel like now Country Ham is, we always talk about Country Ham and how good that batch was. There's some reminders of Country Ham in this bottle. I'm not saying it's to that level, but I think the elevated sweetness in Country Ham is there. What this, the one thing I always look for in a new bottle of Booker's is like this rich red fruit note that you don't normally get in every single Booker's, and that's the flavor that I think makes a Booker special. Maybe that's slightly there. I'm not getting it a lot. I'm just mainly getting like those really nice sweet flavors. Yeah, that dark caramel, brown sugar, almost like a dark vanilla type thing too going on. That pecan pie, a little bit of like a pecan pie type thing that it's got. A little hint of chocolate I really love. I mean, you could make an argument, depending on your palate, if you are picking up like a dark fruit. I mean, it could be there, but regardless, this is a really nice batch of Booker's. I mean, I think I've told the story before. Booker's is the bottle of bourbon that made me like get jump started into bourbon. It was the first cask strength bourbon I ever had, and I was like, oh, holy crap! Like this is what cask strength bourbon tastes like, and then I was hooked. Actually, I'm going to compare this really quick to Kentucky Tea and see what some of the differences are. Kentucky Tea is my favorite batch from last year. Let's see how it compares. All right, so here's Kentucky Tea coming in at 7 years, 4 months, 14 days, so a little bit older than Charlie's batch. And as far as proof goes, 126.5, so it's 1/10 lower than the Charlie's batch. So here we go. Wow, the Kentucky Tea on the nose is actually just as sweet as the Charlie's batch from what I remember. I think the Charlie's batch actually has a darker type of, DNA to it. It's like a darker caramel, a darker vanilla, the pecan, like those it's almost like toasty with like the chocolate in it. I don't know, it's just like a little bit of a dark side of Booker's, which is kind of nice. The Kentucky Tea, however, is bright. It's really sweet. It's almost sugary sweet. Let's try the Kentucky Tea. Man, you talk about an easy sipping Booker's. I still think this is one of the easier sipping, Booker's I've had in a long time. Kentucky Tea is really good. Now, when you compare it to Charlie's batch, I think Charlie's batch offers a very similar sipping experience. However, I think the flavors in Charlie's batch are just darker. They're darker, they're a little bit richer. I think there's a few more layers to it. And where Kentucky Tea lacks on the finish with like that savory rye spice, I think that's where Charlie's batch actually shines. So you have this combination of sweet, you got some savory, some rye spice. Charlie's batch is a hitter. So quick question for everybody out there watching. This should get the comments rolling. Now, in recent years, Booker's has always been, frowned upon. When that price point went from $60 to $90, everyone's like, I'm never gonna buy a Booker's again. I get it. But when you look at the market today, right? Like, think about it. You have a lot of sourced whiskeys and sourced bourbons out there that are 4 years old, sourced from MGP, and they're being sold for like $60. Sometimes $70 in some cases, sometimes $200. It depends on, who it's from. So can we really be mad at Booker's anymore? Even with everyday bourbons on the shelf, also being increased in price and cost and everything wrapped around it, has a $90 Booker's kind of turned back the clock a little bit and has become, a better value than what it did when it originally went up in price? I don't know, it's just something to think about. There's some arguments to be made, I think, on both sides, but has Booker's caught up to the market? Or has the market caught up to Booker's, which is the question. So let me know down in the comments, and while you do that, I'm gonna go to the final breakdown. All right, final breakdown on the Booker's Charlie's batch, the first release of Booker's for 2023. All right, price $90, secondary market value. You don't really see these at secondary unless it's an older or more coveted batch. We'll see what happens with this one. Availability for Booker's, I would think, is actually pretty good. The one thing about Booker's, though, is there is some very loyal buyers of Booker's. So if you do get it in your area, generally they sell fast no matter what. I don't think the $90 really, curbs anyone from buying this bottle. But I will say that the availability, and being a Jim Beam product, the availability is pretty good. Value for this one is pretty interesting because, like I just mentioned, When you compare it to the rest of the market, you know, how good is this? Now, with Booker's, you have to go batch to batch. For this one in particular, for the value here, for $90 for what you're getting, the flavors, you know, compared to the rest of the market, I'm actually going to call this even. I'm not going to say, normally I would say low, but I think for this batch, for Charlie's batch, I'm going to say it's even. The most I'd pay, just like I said, it's even. I'm going to stick at $90. That's what I would want to pay for this one. I know it's more expensive in some areas, but also in some areas you can get this a little bit cheaper. I think I've seen these at Costco for like 75 or 80 bucks. So really depends on where you get it, but I don't really want to pay over MSRP for any Booker's still. When it comes to alternatives, I mean, the number one that sticks out is always Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. You're looking at a 12-year-old uncut, unfiltered bourbon from Heaven Hill. That's normally about $20 to $30 cheaper than Booker's is. So that's probably the number one. But you have Wild Turkey Rare Breed out there, barrel proof bourbon from my favorite distillery over at Wild Turkey. You have Smoke Wagon Uncut Unfiltered, which is a nice cask strength bourbon from MGP. National Barrel Company puts out these 6-year, you know, single barrels that can be absolutely phenomenal, which actually could take down a Booker's. So there's plenty of great options and alternatives out there if you don't want to pay the $90 for Booker's. Lastly, what's the recommendation? Is it a skip? Is it a try before you buy? Is it a buy, or is it a buy and back it up? This one, I'm gonna say is a buy, especially if you're a fan of Booker's. This bottle of Booker's, I think, is fantastic. One of the better ones that I remember having. You know, I think the one that really kind of killed it for me was Granny's batch, like way back when. I despise that batch. And I think they were kind of mediocre after that. But I think going into the end of last year with Kentucky Tea, and now we're starting off the year with this Charlie's batch, this is a damn nice batch of Booker's. Now, whether it's worth $90 is subjective to you guys, you know, each and every person. This is probably one of the nicest balanced Booker's I've had in a long time. So for that, it's a buy. All right, guys, well, thanks for watching this review on the first batch of Booker's for 2023. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that subscribe button below. Please hit the like button. Let me know down in the comments if you have had this one, what you think of it. Also, don't forget to kind of sound off in the comments and let me know if you think that the Booker's price point has caught up to the market, or has the market caught up to the Booker's price point. Maybe Booker's was just a little bit ahead of its time. And with all that said, it's not about the whiskey, it's the people you share it with. Cheers, see you next time right here on The Mash and Drum. Take care, everybody.